Welcome to the Terri Talks. I'm your host, Terri Brown, and I'll be talking on Tuesdays with real people about real challenges and solutions in real estate investing.
Hello, world. Happy Tuesday. I am so excited to be here today. I was going for a certain look, so let me get this like this and do like this. Listen, we are so super excited. And while what we want to talk about tonight and just have a conversation around tonight is super important, we believe that, we can talk about them in such a candid way that doesn't bring gloom and doom, but that it inspires, it empowers, and it really provokes folks to change. And so we're going to have some fun along the way with this super serious topic that has, been a thing for some time. And one of the reasons I think it continues to be a thing because we don't talk about it enough, right? It's frequently discussed when there is something national happening, right? And then after that wears off, after the shock and all kind of wears off, then we kind of retreat back to our corners and we continue with business as usual. However, I believe that in this season and in the times we're living in, there's absolutely no way that we can live or retreat back to business as usual. And I started off the year when I knew that the new administration was coming in. And I said, Lord, this is definitely not a time for people to be in a stupor, to look away, or to act like what's happening is not happening. That's called an altered reality, which we know there is a segment of people who thrive in alternative realities, right? But what you're seeing and what we're seeing and what we're feeling mentally, emotionally, financially, socially, it is happening, right? And because myself and our guests tonight are women of faith, we don't traffic in fear and we don't want you to traffic in fear. However, we need to traffic in transformation, right? Because enough is enough. And if you love your children, you love your family beyond today, then you too would want to tap into the conversation and just make some adjustment. We need to make some adjustments. And, it's like one of those things for me. I believe that Black folks is the most resilient and resourceful people around town. I ain't pulling out all of the stops. That's point blank, period. That's what I know. And in that, right, we're the most brilliant people around town. And, I'm going to say this for the sake of saying it, being pro my people and pro Black don't make me anti anybody else. I love people because God loves people. But just as Esther was called for such a time as she was called for her people, I believe that I'm called for such a time for my people. Amen. 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 Walls and the people in the back, right? So what I want you to do, because of the conversation at hand and the topic at hand, I want you to take a minute and go share this YouTube, right? Because I'm going to be myself and our guest for today. We ain't talking at you. That, you can go search a YouTube video for that, or you can, listen to your favorite podcast and all that as well. But in this world, in our ecosystem here at Terri Talks, we are interested and you executing on the information that you've heard. And so with that, we're going to have a lot of call and responses. We're going to pose some things to you that hopefully will cause you to think differently and move from a different place. What the operative word is move, right? And do something that you can do. This is not beyond or outside of our wheelhouse. I just said that we are the most resilient and resourceful people around town. So there's nothing that we cannot do. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So take a minute. I think it's, something they'll put the link in the chat. I guess there's a link here. I don't do that. I build houses. Whatever they do inside that chat, they're going to do it. But in all seriousness, I want you to go and share this with someone you know need to join the conversation about why haven't Black people cornered the market. We're going to give you about 60 seconds to do that. And then I'm going to catch us all up with that language just to make sure, you ever been, and y'all can weigh in on this as we waiting for people to go and share it now. You got to do something now. Go do that for me. Have you ever been in a room and someone's talking and you like, I know I'm smart, but I don't understand nothing they saying because I don't understand the language, right? I don't understand the terminology. It's a new space for me. So before we dive in, that's something that we're going to do is help you catch up with these terms. It's important for me. Anybody who knows me, I don't follow trends. I follow the Lord. And that don't make me super pious. Do I get everything right? Absolutely not, right? So I'm not saying that from a place of righteousness or self-righteousness. But with that, I don't go with all of the sexy terms and, and all of the, all right, generational wealth, if it's not something that I'm actually flowing with and executing on, right? There's a lot of things that you can hear and get in social media and, and just in passing, but what does it profit if, we don't do nothing with the words that we're hearing or we don't understand? The Bible says with all that getting, we should get an understanding. And so I'm going to catch us up to speed. I'm getting ready to introduce or ask our guests to introduce themselves, and then we just gonna get at it, right? So without further ado, I want to welcome these awesome ladies that I get to do life with, that I get to, as first generational wealth builders, build wealth with, and acquire assets and prioritize assets over liability, right? I get to share and leave an inheritance to my children's children because I have folks that are on the team, right? And they're on my team in one capacity or another. And I say that to say, we don't need to go it alone. You need to make sure that if there is a place that you're trying to get, that you set yourself up to be able to get there, right? And you can't get there with just words alone, although words have power. So I'm going to ask these ladies to introduce themselves, and then we just going to get going. And if you haven't done so, go and share this live with someone right now. Right now. All right. Who wants to go first?
I can go. You can share, like, and subscribe. You can share, like, and gotta be on that. So I'm Kirsten Britt. I am the operations manager. One of my titles, I'm operations manager at Built to Last. And I am also the founder of Girl Genius. So I'm excited to be here today and enter into this conversation with you lovely women and get to it. So I'll pass off.
Hi, everyone. I'm Toni Moore, a business lawyer who pretty much is challenging people to take ownership of their God-given power to create wealth, not just to have it or seek it or beg for it. Through our entrepreneurship and leveraging the intellectual property that has been packaged deep down on the inside of us. I talk a lot about compliance because God can't bless mess. I talk a lot with regards to the legalities because most people try to ignore the law until they get their assets jacked up. And I'm just one of those lawyers who get on Terri's nerves, a couple of them on her in her wheelhouse, who make sure that her assets are protected and that her business is done right.
Listen, and quite frankly, that's part of the reason why she's here, to make sure I don't say the wrong thing, right? But she can get on my nerves. We've been together almost 10 years, and she is one of my legal counsel. Listen, she gonna be that one that stays forever because of just what the mission is that she has, the mandate that she has on her life. And so if you're looking for a business attorney, you need to tap in. I say this often, I'm a hit it and quit it. But it's one thing to check a box and get a check. For me, it's another thing to not be purely transactional because the people you serve are not robot. And sometimes it requires you to be a little bit more relational to even understand how to serve them. And this woman has been that for me. You know, somebody can wake up at 4 a.m. and texting me all these names that I need to have and programs I need to run. That's someone who cares about, you know, my legacy. They care about how I show up in the marketplace, right? And so that's important. And that's important to our discussion today. So we'll have all of that in the chat, their contact information, but you want to make sure that you are legally protected, especially as business owners and aspiring business owners. And to Kirsten, we thank God for her genius and what she's able to do. So without really further to do, let's go ahead and get started. Hello, Miss Sandy. I did see you in the chat. Please like, share, and comment. So our topic for today, I don't think I've had so many people either text me or interact on social media with me around this topic. So what that lets me know is that there's a need to have the conversation. And so tonight, I don't want you to just hear and absorb. I want you to engage. I want you to put your thoughts in the comment. In the comment section in the chat. We may do some polling because, again, we're not women here just to do another thing. We're here to move a community, right? And to propel us to think differently around a few things. So when we talk about corner the market, and I'm going to stay on task because y'all know that I can talk for days, hence Terri Talks, because I'm passionate about so much, but we only have a limited time and people's attention span is short. I'm going to jump in. My coach is here. Welcome, Coach LaShawn Holland. And at any time you decide you want to jump in on this conversation on stage, you have full permission to do that. I text you earlier or somewhere that you being here is worth $1 million to me and beyond. So I love and appreciate you. Thank you for honoring your word of being front and center with us tonight. Again, because you are a resident expert in this area, if Coach LaShawn Holland decide that you want to come to this stage, if you feel led, use the link that we use. And if you need the link, let me know. In fact, I think I'm going to send it to you just in case Holy Spirit moves you to say something, because I already know what type time you on, and it's not about me or anybody here. It's about us having lasting and impactful change. So again, if you feel like you want to come to this stage, you are more than welcome. All right. So when the statement is made about why we aren't cornering the market, here are some things to consider. Do we have, as Black folks, economic dominance in any particular industry? Do we have broad generational wealth, right? Do we actually have generational wealth that's perpetual and that's consistent in our community? Our entrepreneurial presence in key sectors, how strong is it? Is it, all right, Lord, I'm going to say it. Are we superstars in our immediate community? Right? So you'll see, oh yeah, that's a household name, but how far does the household extend? Is the household confined to a particular state? Is it confined to a particular city? Cultural influence translating, now hear this, into economic control. So I was just on something today, and I want you guys to jump in whenever you feel. I was on something today, and they started talking about the SBA, and they were talking about how, it's taking for some 8 months to get a loan, right? But then there are these communities within that community that for others, it may take 30 to 45 days or even less than 30 days. So do we have economic control? When we see all of the things happening in our world, how many of us, even in business, could afford or are positioned that when, I'm going to say it like this, when others throw us away, can we catch them, right? So when I think about cornering the market, those are the 4 things that I immediately think about. Now, before I go asking any questions, do either you want to add to that, elaborate on any of the 4 things that I mentioned? The floor is open. The stage is open.
I mean, I don't know. I hear it. So one of the things that I have noticed is that a lot of us have to truly understand it's not necessarily about why aren't we, but who's benefiting from our division and our miseducation. I know this one, and I don't know him personally, Wallow 215, Wallow in Philadelphia. He was talking about jail, and he was talking about how Black people separate themselves from the East Coast and the West Coast and the South and the whatever. Whereas the white people was just like, we're white. It didn't matter. They're from Australia or whatever. So when we start talking about even the economic development, we already know, if you think about historically speaking, it comes a point in our lives where we have to consistently say, we're on the team. You know what I mean? Like Black privilege. I know that there was a hashtag Black Lives Matter, blah, blah, blah. But it has to get to a point where I've seen it before. Was it the Susu? Or even after slavery, the Reconstruction period, where you had the sorority sisters and you had women who were launching businesses. They launched together. They prayed together. They did business together. But sometimes you have individuals who have gone up, like your coach has gone up to certain levels in her business, right? Where, and then somebody's like, well, why doesn't she just gift her gifts and talents away? I've heard enough of her story that she did that before, and now she's packaged her brilliance into a business that is not necessarily gifting it away. So anytime we're talking about African Americans, male, women, is so many different subsets of who we are that it's like, how do we all come together as one family? And most of the time, it's not going to happen. Even culturally speaking, if you said, Tone, let's get together and, let's start a real estate hedge fund. You know what I mean? Well, most of us, I don't have $50 million, I would probably have to get some SBA loans, and then I would get a trust, and then I would more than likely have an insurance policy, pull out the cash value, and have a couple of members who are in that LLC that we can leverage other people's money until we had that investment. Because most of us come from broke, trauma, poverty, and a lot of stuff.
Okay. Because that you getting ready to go down a whole, I want to back up for a minute because you said a lot. And the first thing I heard, and I'm going to ask you to go on mute so we don't get the echo. All right. So one of the things though, before we can even ask you to invest in $50,000, we got communities that our memberships are $47 and we won't even tap into it. Right. And, I'm thinking of two communities right now. One, shout out to Liberated Soul, that deals with the mind and the soul that can help you get to the money. Right. Then my own legacy collective, right, where we're actually have a space to pull resources together. You're getting the education, you're getting the execution, and people won't tap in. Right. They, for whatever we kind of know some of the reasons. Right. So before we can even talk about, in my opinion, people being able to invest $50,000, how about $47, right, a month that can get you to the $1 million? The other thing that you said that I kind of wanted to just touch about, and we started this off and we were talking about Tyler Perry, and we were talking about the young lady, I think her name is Aileen or somebody, Simon, who, she's suing him over she people and using that whole thing, right? And I said, one of the things that I feel is that, to your point, we will drag the mess out of each other. Right. And we will bring it center stage as if that's the thing. Now, from a former law enforcement standpoint, they be looking at us because they already, back in slavery days, we were more entertainment. Do you understand that that's more entertainment for them? Like, there's nothing that, and I'm not saying I'm not on the side of who's right, who's wrong. I'm not the professional. I ain't even delving into that. But I'm talking about, if we're going to corner markets, there are some systemic cultural changes that has to take place, right? And that's one of them. And now when we talk about jail and we talk about Black Lives Matter, I'm going to say this and then one of y'all can jump in. Here is the challenge I've had with that. And again, I've seen it from a view that maybe most don't, right? So I'm on the side of seeing where there's tons of protests when there is a police shooting involving a Black person, right? And, we knocking on doors and all of that. When it fizzles out, then, okay, does Black lives still don't matter, right? What about in the educational realm, right? What about in housing where you have redlining? What about all of those things that need to matter around Black lives, right? And so the psyche is, let them riot. As long as there's no formidable change, there's no substantive change, it's like we're entertainment. That's the best way I can put it. So I think that those are some of the things that we have to change. The other part of that is we rioting and we doing a lot of talking, but we broke. The Bible says money answers all things. It does, right? And so if you want to move the needle, the truth of the matter is you have to have funds to do it. I'm going to yield the floor.
Okay, I'm going to unmute with regards to it. So the question then becomes, when it comes to why aren't we taking ownership of the marketplace, even with regards to bringing up Allison, Amy, and She the People and the whole Tyler Perry situation, right? As a business lawyer who does a lot with trademarking, I appreciate brand names matter, brand protection matter. But if we Google She the People, to me, it didn't become like a household name until Tyler Perry put his fingerprint on it. Because a lot of people, they start a business, they file a trademark, but then they don't take ownership. And I mean ownership with regards to, I go on to She the People, and there's a derivative brand out there called She the Power. You know what I mean? And then there's her nonprofit, but on one of those social media pages, it wasn't updated for a whole year. So when people, we don't necessarily understand the rules and the rules of even engaging, like what's regards to like what you're talking about. Why isn't someone paying $47? Tony, I'm not even talking about $50,000. Well, I don't know if $47 a month is going to really help push the needle with regards to it. You're like, no, Tony, it does. Absolutely. But some people don't think so, especially if I'm trying to buy a building for $100,000. How many people?
Let me give you a real life example. Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, your $47 gets you in a community of mind shifting, right? The Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. You're not moving because of money. You're moving because of a mindset, right? You're not moving because of a heart set. So you need to first, and even if you get the mind, hear this, if you get the mind to move the first time, do you have the mindset to move consistently, right? Or can you keep what you get? Because that's the other issue that people have, that you might be able to make it, but can you keep it? Are you dispersing it? Are you distributing it correctly, right? So in this community, you're getting mindset. You're getting movement, consistent movement, right? And you're learning about susus. You're learning about how to have sustainable wealth, right? How to have sustainable cash flow. And then it's not we talking about it. We are exhibiting it. We just put in our platform today. I'm doing walkthroughs tomorrow. Who wants to go? Who wants to learn how to analyze these numbers? We are prioritizing assets, stock options, all of the things to get you there. And we're giving you the tools. We have a wholesaling meeting every other week for them to jump on and learn how to do wholesaling, that you can do it from your computer, right? So yes, it can. And you can do one deal, wholesale deal, make $10,000 easily. You can get in on a deal where your money is sitting in a bank, where it's only producing 0.01%, where you waiting 12 months to get probably $2 versus getting in on an investment and making potential. I'm giving small numbers here, but the sky's the limit based on what your mind, how committed you are, right? You can get in and invest in something that's turning over in 30 days and make you 1,500, right? So no, you can. Look, I don't swear because the Bible tells me I ain't supposed to, but on everything I love, that's not true. If you have a mind and a heart and you committed, right? I ain't talking about lip service. I'm talking about education and execution and being in environments that support that. Here's the problem I feel. We hear it And then we go outside of what we heard and we entertain more of the opposite, then more of the stuff that we constantly need to hear that will get us to where we need to be. Liberated soul, $47. Like, we're dealing with how to break things out of your bloodline, how to heal, how to every day show up in this trauma-filled world. Whereas if you're overburdened by it, you can't resourcefully think. You can't think about how to go to the next move. You ain't making proper connections because all of the connections are either frail or they're stale or they're no further along than you are. But you can get with one person. I'm in another community. I got with one person that breeded a $50,000 contract. So I absolutely disagree. So I went on my soapbox.
You're going to
but I don't want to
disagree
dominate it just
because it may, I'm going to just pick with you. You're going to disagree because it sounds personal. But without some level of, most people are not investing in mindset. Sorry, they're not. A lot of people, we understand and appreciate that a changed mind changes the world, but nobody's investing in mindset. People want to make money. They want to live. They want to be happy. They want to have a relationship and things of that nature. Unfortunately, the more money I make, the more I was like, oh, shoot, I need to go back to my finances. Oh, shoot, I need to start looking at my liabilities and my assets. Oh, shoot, I need to start thinking about longevity, right? And plus, I'm older. I'm almost like on the other side of 55. You know what I mean? So I have to start thinking about that. But I look at people and they come to my office and they're like, oh, Toni, I want to create generational wealth. I'm like, great, but you got to create income first. Or they said, Toni, I want a trust fund. I'm like, great. You know, what do you want to put in your trust? My house. And is there a mortgage on the house? Yeah. And do you have insurance to cover the mortgage just in case something happens? No. I'm like, because I have too many stories where families inherit liabilities. Yeah, you're probably first generation starter. You know, maybe you paid $47 and you up level increasingly so. And maybe you followed the gurus and maybe you now know how to do flips and the wholesaling and all blah, blah, blah. But if you didn't require your family members to do it, like I came from the hood, the trash hood from Harrisburg. But unfortunately, I gave birth to two black males in the suburbs. So they're not hungry because I fed them. And there's a lot of people who came from the struggle bus, but they're not hungry. Or we get so indoctrinated, as you said, to be entertainers. So we know how to peacock, look good, just like they did in slave culture. Okay. We know how to make it look good on Facebook or Facebook, depending on who you're talking to. But then when you talk about the financial acumen of the person, you know, those conversations are being less had. Even financial literacy. That's why I do financial literacy differently. I'm just like, start a business, create metrics, start a business, create your first 5. All right. Now create your first 10. And most people get stuck because statistically speaking, we hear that, you know, on average is between $29,000 and $50,000. And then most people are running. I remember someone who moved to California, but she was in Philly first. She stopped talking about business credit because that's when all of our people showed up because they want to just be able to leverage other people's money. And then people come to me as a former bankruptcy lawyer talking about, do I got to pay this back? And as you know, it's a mindset. And I think it's more like a spiritual.
So I agree that people don't buy mindset, but we talk about everything, right? For the people who are called, right? Because a couple things, right? Everybody is not called to the certain work. There is one body, many members, right? But for the people who feel like God is anointed for them for this work, how not exhaust ourselves by what we don't see and how we don't contribute to what we don't see. So what do I mean? We can say, you know, certain things or promote certain things and cause that to go viral, but why not promote something around mindset and cause that to go viral, right? Because it doesn't absolve us, especially if you say you have a mandate. I think, and yes, it could be a heavy lift, right? But somebody got to stay the course, or because we understand all the mitigating, contributing factors that allows this to be, you know, allow us to be stuck in stagnation, right? So if you're called to the work, right, and you believe that the anointing destroys the yoke, and you believe that God has called you, then you still have a mandate to switch to bring it, to keep it before the people. So yeah, while this is not, again, a super sexy topic, some people, like, I don't know everything about this area, but what I do know, so go I, right? Like that's, and so we're going to have a conversation. So I agree with you that you find people won't invest in mindset, but I think that's a slippery slope that then causes us to veer away from it. I'm gonna give another example of what I mean about this very thing, and then Kirsten, you are here too. So if you want to jump in, please feel free to do so. And while I'm doing that, I do want the audience to answer a question. Why haven't Black communities achieved dominant economic power in industries where they have cultural influence? I'm gonna pose the question again, and then when someone else answers, I'm gonna jump in this chat to see what y'all saying. Why haven't Black communities achieved dominant economic power in industries where they have cultural influence? And how do I know we have cultural influence? Based on the talents that we have that's being pimped out, one, for me, and two, we are more consumers than we are owners. So I want you to think about that. And for the people in the back row, I'm going to say it one more time. Why, or I'm going to ask it one more time. Why haven't Black communities achieved dominant economic power in industries where they have cultural influence? So let me finish with my example. I bank with the United Bank of Philadelphia, and I had someone say to me, they got terrible customer service. Okay. And so then my answer was, yeah, they do. Part of it is they don't have enough people banking with them. So as a result of them not having enough people banking with them, they don't have the infrastructure to be able to hire more than one teller, right? So, they've had to shut down. They had 3 branches. They've had to shut down. So that tells you that they got into some economic, the sources are limited. The resources are limited. But we will bank with Citizens Bank, and Tony, tell me if I'm out of bounds. They ain't gonna sue me because I said something wrong. But we will bank with companies and businesses that they got poor customer service too. But just because they are a big name, or they're a household name, but how did they get there? Because people bought from them. People patronize them. How does Walmart have all of the employees that they have? They didn't start there, or maybe they did. They may have gotten a loan, which some of us, right, don't start off with being able to seed our businesses. People going crazy about, oh, now they going after Dollar Store and, Target. But do we know we have businesses that have products that are in those stores that we can support? Yeah, they may be a little bit more expensive because there's not a whole lot of demand. We become the demand, right? So, when we say that, well, this whole thing about, well, people won't buy mindset and all of that, that doesn't mean we don't keep talking about it. That doesn't mean that transformation doesn't need to happen. And I'm not saying I have all the answers. I do not. But what I do have, I want to give. And I think that we need to keep this before people, because if we don't want our children, and if you don't have children, your next generation family members, to be in a place of, I'm going to say this, I'm going to be in a little extreme because I don't know it factually, but in a point of return to slavery, then there's some things that we need to do. And here's the thing, y'all, it's within our wheelhouse. It's about making different decisions and making it from a different place. So I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to look in the chat to see what y'all saying. I gave y'all a question. I want to see some of the feedback. In the meantime, I'm going to ask our guests to weigh in or extend the conversation around what I just said.
So I'll jump in. Yeah, so I'm listening to you both, and I have agreement on both sides of the coin. I think one of the biggest things that kind of starts with our issue is us, right? So there's so much trauma. There's so much unhealed, unaddressed trauma. And we talk about resiliency a lot. And so for the sake of, I'm really big on words and what they really mean, right? And to be resilient is to be able to quickly recover from a difficult situation, right? From something difficult. And then I had to look at recover. So then recover means to return to a normal state of health, mind, or strength. And so when I think about resiliency in us, I don't know that we are resilient. I don't know if that's the right word, because are we really returning to a normal, healthy space? Right? We're able to bounce back and keep moving, which I think is being we're saying resilient as if we are in a healthy space. Like, I went through this and now I'm back healthy, I'm back good. No, I went through this and I had this layer of trauma that I'm not addressing, I'm not talking about, I'm not healing from, and I'm on to the next thing. And now I have a new layer of trauma and I'm adding and I'm adding and I'm adding. And so now when we're talking about it from an economic space, I'm approaching it with all of that, right? I'm approaching it with all of these experiences that I'm not healed from, that I'm not healthy. My mindset is not right. In a space that is going to cause me to be on attack as opposed to open arms of love, right? People that look like me. I'm ready to attack everybody. So when you're having a conversation around how we willing to drag each other through the streets for likes, for entertainment purposes, just to see, how somebody's going to respond, but we won't share and promote somebody at those same level. We won't push the go virals in a positive way as much as we push them in a negative way, right? People have so much to say about things that are negative, but when it comes to the stuff that is really going to be life-changing for us, you're not going to get the same kind of energy at the same rate. And even from a financial space, we're going to be competition over collaboration when we know we need to be collaboration over competition. When we look at the other cultures, it's going to be a space of collaboration, right? They get where they get because they're collaborating. They're not competing. These poppy stores that I have in my neighborhood, they all owned by the same family. They put number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
True.
So it's not all of these different poppy stores. No, it's a family that ensures that whoever comes through their funnel, everybody gets something, right? Same thing with the cleaners and the laundromats that we use. These are the things that they come into our communities with, and they succeed off of the money that we're invested. So the money is there, but we're using it to fund somebody else's dream, right? We're using it to help somebody else as opposed to saying, hey, let's put this same money together and let's have our own laundromats, right? Let's have our own poppy stores. I was having a conversation with somebody today and we were talking about segregation over integration. I said, I'm here for segregation. I feel it's like when we did our best was when we were forced to do it together, right? And now we at a place when we want to be accepted and validated by everybody else's and join everybody else's team. And now,
What history book did you see that we was doing it effing better? And segregation. The education system was jacked up. The money was jacked up. Jim Crowism was jacked up. Our people was getting killed and lynched, and it was jacked up. So when I hear younger people talking about we did so much better, we're the we did
so what
so
I
much
mean
better.
from that space is we did for ourselves in a way that we don't do for ourselves now. So we're not
We still doing
not
for
in the
ourselves.
same way, on the same point of needing to be accepted in this space. And that's what it is for me. And so, no, I understand Jim Crow and all of that. But what I'm saying from a business standpoint, even when you looking at us trying to do business and supporting in a goal to support each other is different now than it was then. Like you would support.
I think what we're lacking is community.
We definitely are lacking.
Like there's so many different individuals with community. That's why sometimes churches are like community, but then they have their own tribes and their discourse with regards to it. But I do believe that if it is an assignment of wealth, there is also an assailant, and it's a spiritual warfare. And we can't be ignorant about the 14 generations deep. It's almost like we're saying, oh, but when we was in Egypt, we was all in one happy family and we ate. Like what? No. We have to understand and appreciate that if we keep, like you said, is it really resiliency if we keep bouncing back to a broken space as opposed to completely healed? Is it truly resiliency? It's not with regards to it, especially if we're still broke, if we're still bankrupt, if the poppy stores is the only thing that we got going on. They take EBT for everything, and now the poppy stores got vapes and they give access to our kids. Then they get the Lucy's and all of that stuff.
not only that, they're selling them the Wegovy, and they're selling all these things that, first of all, those are food deserts. That's a whole nother conversation, that we shouldn't be buying nothing from them, but they've learned how to economize off of us, right? Which I think was said. But I think one of the things that I want to clear up, I think resort, just like words have meanings, they have in context, they have meaning, they can mean something different, right? And I'm a firm believer that in hardship, there's resiliency, but then out of it, there's a resilience to get to the hill place. There is not that everyone, they are in hardship, and to your point, they come out of it and they don't pursue happiness or healthiness, right? Or being healthy or wellness. No, I'm one of those, right? Who came out of a lot of, so it was resiliency that helped get me out, and it was resiliency to help me stay out. Right. So I'm not sure we're talking about, for me, I'm not talking about it in a place of, we're returning back to a wholeness. Cause quite frankly, I definitely am not trying to return back to where I came from. Right. But me showing up every single day is a testament to my resourcefulness, my resiliency. And I do think that there's a spirit there that we by default have had to adapt, right? And some people walk in it and they walk in it, right? Then there are some people who they get enough to get out of it, and then they don't, they don't nurture that space. So I just wanted to jump in there with regards to that. I want to mention a few of the things. This is a very good conversation, and I'm thankful for both of yous, or that probably ain't the proper English, but your respective perspectives, right? Because they are needed. That's how we have the conversations. That's how we extend the conversations. And I no doubt believe, as a result of this, some of the things that have been said, it's enough for people to, at minimum, be like, let me go and dig a little bit deeper about that. So with that, mission accomplished. All right. So here was some of the feedback that we got from the audience. And so before I give that feedback, because I want you guys to weigh in on it and really speak to it if you can, from a place of redlining. I know we hit segregation a little bit. That got to be a little sensitive, and systemic exclusion with regards to capital, right? And I'm going to preface this by saying, here is the side I've been on. I don't care what them ninjas do or what they're doing, because while they're scheming and plotting, I'm planning. I'm tapping into where I need to be. So for me, just naturally, and as a believer, I don't care what them ninjas do, but it does not absolve me from doing what I need to do, so that then that this real thing of what they are doing then doesn't become the crutch that I use because it exists. It doesn't matter that it exists, right? As for me and my house, right, we're going to do something different. And so we need to be able to take that position. And these communities that Toni mentioned, if they're the right communities, I'm not saying, jump in any community. I'm saying jump into communities that are making the main thing and can get you to the main thing, right? That's two different things. So here are some what we got back from our audience. This is such a layered issue, and it's a lot to unpack. And so stay tuned, because for the next, and till the Lord say so, every week we're going to hit on one of these layered issues. Okay. Look, a lack of ownership and access of capital, right? So just to bring everyone back up to speed, what am I responding to, or what did you respond to? Why haven't Black communities achieved dominant economic power in industries where they have cultural influence? And this was some of the feedback. Exploitation of culture without equity. And that I want y'all to touch on that, because that is a thing, but we allowing it too. So, but I want y'all to hit on that. Not growing up being taught about, about the topic, right? Or understanding money and all of that. That's definitely a contributing factor. Enslaved mindset.
That's deep.
All right. A focus on visibility. Now, this is where, y'all hear me say, how about stop trying to look good and then let us actually be good. And I heard someone say this, but what if you position yourself financially? Then you can do all the things without stress, strain, struggle, and survival. And you can do it for other people, and you can do it in other states, and you can do so. And then fear. Fear was one. We know that's, environmentally, that's, a contributing factor. And then receiving funding. I think that's in line with the lack of access to capital. My guess, what you got?
Let me just say, it matters who's in the White House. It does. This John, I'm going to just say, this John is a
Deacon husband is watching.
That's all right. That's why I said this John. Okay. Let's just say he shut down a lot of access to capital. One, I remember when I was teaching at the business school level, and I was just asking people in Philadelphia, like, raise your hands, how many people actually have a procurement, like a contract with the government. And there was all the excuses of why they didn't have one. But the sad thing is, this John wanted to take away access to these procurement opportunities by closing down the OFCCP, rolling it into the EEOC, right? Googleable, with regards to the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Program. Shut that down. When he came back in office, he pretty much told the Department of Labor, if there's any pending situations, whatever, we're going to shut that down. We're not going to press forward with any litigation. That essentially means that when the majority owners, or even the mentoring programs where they said, hey, we're going to bring in a minority woman or a person of color, or, we're going to make sure that they get 5 cents on the damn dollar. Okay. And they wanted to take that away. So that's one. OFCCP. EEOC, they made that hard. Then it was something called the Minority Business Development Agency. So it matters who's in the White House. We talk about growth. How many people ignore and they skipped and they voted for the white demon spawn, you know what I mean? Because they didn't want a woman in the business or something in the White House. Whatever their reason is, we get what we got. Even with regards to the SBA, Small Business Administration, when we talk about financial literacy, most people get stuck on budgets. I'm like, financial literacy is beyond that. Okay. With entrepreneurship, even with regards to,
I need you to say that again. And budgets are limiting. But I'm going to stop. Say it again for the people in the back.
Yeah, like financial literacy is beyond budgets. You got to think about assets and liabilities. You got to think about opportunities to have like investments in equity and also like leveraging business opportunities and business insurance. I remember meeting this young guy. He's awesome and amazing. He's Googleable as well, but he is Ashley Bell, African-American male, who use private lending, private equity, placement loans, conversations that were not necessarily had. I got a chance to get introduced to these conversations just doing employee benefit compliance. And that's when I realized that we really are, when it comes to finances, playing checkers. Okay. We start one business. We get excited about one poppy store. We get excited about one hairstyle. Even with regards to celebrities, I've seen enough of their contracts. Guess what? They're not deemed as owners. They're called talent. In slavery, we were still talent, So when you say like corner a particular marketplace, I would think that once they start making money, like allegedly Kai Sennett, everyone's like, Streamer University, allegedly he spent $3 million of his own money, did not leverage other people's money. People are so excited that all eyes got on streamers and they got, they look good. They were popular for a moment. And how does that turn into money? Like, how does that turn into something that now you can eat from it and your children's children? How do we leverage our popularity into a privatization with regards to it?
You out of the frame.
The privatization with regards to it. Those are all conversations that we miss out on because of the fact that we're rubbing two nickels together. But I'm telling you right now, mindset matters, just so we're all clear, but it's always about the gamification of our success. If you say, okay, I'm going to start thinking bigger. Like, I want us to start playing bigger with God, okay? With regards to it, like, God, if you said that you are my waymaker, that no good thing will be withheld from me, that, the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the righteous, even if that dude, that John in the White House, shut down some opportunities, there's still loans out there There's still Alice grants out there, but I always look at the fact that, and we say fear. Why are we going, what's fear? We can't keep, if you love God, you believe that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Why we keep throwing out fear? You know what I mean? Just say, because I'm going to put it on me too. Like I'm in some marketing class and they're like, Toni, why didn't you? Because I didn't. It wasn't a priority. So until it becomes a priority, we're not going to see change.
I agree. And I also agree that some of the money is sitting right in our own houses. So while we're trying to access capital, some of us ain't even ready to receive additional capital. We got poor management. You mentioned this. Our priorities are displaced, right? We would rather, and we know it all kind of stems back to mindset, and it comes back to, just generational things that we have adopted and we just decided not to change, right? But, people don't even, they don't understand investing, right? Which is one of the reasons why they'll ask about cost instead of understanding the value, right? So there's this, we could talk about a lack of access, and I hear that all the time, and that is true. But here's the thing, as long as we exist, and as Toni mentioned, as long as the God we serve as believers exist, it don't matter what them jokers do or don't do. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Like, there's a thing that you can do, and within your own wheelhouse, within our own resources. You mentioned, our family's not coming together, and you are absolutely right. I'm like, all right, I'm out here helping other people make money. Let me have a family meeting, right? And maybe two of them jokers showed up, but here is where I'm going to challenge that. We will continue to put up with what other people don't do for us, and we'll keep going after it. We'll keep asking them. We'll keep, wanting to be in their space. We're persistent with that. But when it comes to the harder things that can help shift even our dependency on that, right? Which that's a whole nother conversation. If we would shift us, it would be about leveraging all of this capital and this access, not a dependency. I can't move unless they give it to me. Nobody should have, especially as a believer, nobody should have that much power over what we do and don't do. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Kirsten, do you want to?
I agree. I think to both of your points, one, remember first who we are. So if we say we are believers, then what does that really mean, right? What am I saying if I'm saying I'm a believer in what and believer in who? So if I'm truly a believer, then I have to believe the things that God has said. And he said enough things that tell me that the position that most of us are in is not the one that he had planned for us, right? So a lot of us, there's a choice that we're making to have a poor mindset, right? I went to the store for my cousin, technically for my aunt, yesterday, and I was sent to pick up cigarettes. Now, I don't smoke, so I don't know nothing about cigarettes. So I'm picking up these cigarettes, and I had to pick up 3 packs. And then she told me it was $44.75. And I said, what in the devil? Like, 40, that's $50 for cigarettes? $50 for somebody who can barely pay their bills? Dollars? Like, and how often are we spending this money? So it's not that money and opportunities aren't there. We are making decisions about where we want to put our money, right? What I want to spend my money on. I'm going to spend thousands of dollars on a prom send-off. I'm going to spend thousands of dollars on a prom send-off, and then want everybody to bring the gifts for the child going to college or the child not going nowhere. But it is how and what we are prioritizing. We aren't prioritizing investing, right? We are prioritizing consuming things, right? We just want to buy things, bunch of stuff we don't need, bunch of stuff we don't even truly desire. We're buying things because we aren't healed. We're buying things because we got some other issues going on, but we don't want to invest. We tell ourselves we can't afford to invest, but it's the same money that I'm putting in to buy something I don't need. I tell people, even for me as a travel agent, I said, people can afford to go to Mexico and they can't afford to go around the corner. So if I ask them, if they got $20, they're going to tell me no, but they They on every trip everywhere. So it is a priority that we're missing. So I'm all about the priority. But me as a believer, if I'm saying that I'm a believer, what kind of representation is the feedback, Terry? What kind of representation of God?
Yeah, because I'm getting
Okay.
ready to
What
jump
kind of
in.
representation of God am I really? If I'm always coming from a place of lack, if I'm always coming from a place of mismanagement, how am I being a model of who it is I say I serve?
With that, thank you for that insightfulness. We have a question. What do you know about historical Black economic powerhouses like Tulsa? Why don't we hear more about them? So, to our audience, what do you know about historical Black economic powerhouses like Tulsa? Why don't we hear more about them? Say it one more time. And if you know of other powerhouses, Black economic powerhouses, I want you to put that in the chat. What do you know about historical Black economic powerhouses like Tulsa? And why don't we hear more about them? All right, 1 minute. I want you all to weigh in on that. Now y'all don't have nothing to say.
No. I'm like, I was in my brain. I was thinking, well, isn't that what they was the John in the White House and his allies was saying that's a woke history, with regards to it? Because when I was asking a church friend of mine about, she's a principal, and I was like, so what type of African American history do y'all teach? Because I'm from Harrisburg and I came from Brokety Brokefield. You know what I mean? So in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is 2 hours down the street and around the corner from Philadelphia, I hated being a Black person. All we heard about was the nice Black people, the Benjamin Banneker's of the world. You know what I mean? The Frederick Douglasses of the world, not the people who were like, you know what? I'm going to take my, whatever the master gave to me, and I'm going to leverage. I'm going to take my knowledge, my information, my intellectual property, and I'm going to start my business, and I'm going to start my own Black Wall Street. There's a push because deep down on the inside of us, God is still great, and the power within us wants to build and create and attain wealth. Now, what's ever outside of us is the thing that's keeping us. But the schools ain't ever going to teach us, just like
Right.
in the
So
slave
I
culture.
want to shift this, right?
Yeah.
I want to shift it. While we talk about what they ain't going to do, I want to also say, what are we going to do and what can we do? So there is that, but then what are we going to do? So I want to pass this to Kirsten. What do you feel? Because what Toni said is it's real. It is a thing. It is relevant. But how can we shift the narrative one episode at a time, right? Or one conversation at a time, or one community at a time, or one gathering at a time? How can we shift it? And audience, I didn't see any comments, but I'll ask it again. And Google is your friend, but think about Black Wall Street, right? What do you know about historical Black economic powerhouses like Tulsa, and why don't we hear more about them? All right, Kirsten, you want to give us, Toni told us a staunch reality, right? But what is the resolve?
I think, when you talk about changing the narrative, we got to own a new one, right? So where is it we want to be and where do we want to go, right? And then work from that space. So we've even said like, oh, well, people are not buying mindset. So let's stop selling them mindset. They not buying it. Let's stop selling them. Let's find a new way to infuse a mindset shift in people. So they don't feel like, oh, this another thing, another trend, another whatever, but starting to really teach it in a different way that says, hey, like we've been doing this way and these are results. That's not what we really want. And how do we get something different in making the actual shift of a mindset the new norm, our new norm, right? That we stop talking about what we don't have, what we didn't do, whatever. This is what we're doing now, right? Coming from a place of empowerment, completely
Yes.
intermediate,
Yes.
and owning it. You are awesome and amazing. Great. Let me tell you how, and let me help you even level up the awesome and amazingness that you already are, right? Let me show you how you can do that. I'm not going to tell you what your daddy didn't do, your grandpa didn't do, your mama didn't do. I'm going to tell you where you are and what you can do, right? So it's like how you went to career day to go shed some light. You could be in construction as a female. You can, even at 25, 35, 45, wherever you are, we can make the shift now. I get it. You didn't know, you didn't learn, nobody told you. But we here now. So I'm going to teach you. Pull somebody along.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we started this by, if anything is going to change, it's going to have to first start in our minds. And if you know the narrative or the reality of people not wanting to buy into or invest in or spend time with mindset shifts, but you're here and you understand that, then how about, right, in your own way, you encourage that, right? Or you talk about it, right? Here's what I learned. If I wanted to have more of what I wanted, I had to get around people who wanted that. And then the people I talk to, I only talk about what I want to talk about, right? And they can either choose to roll or don't roll. Now, I want to share this and then we're getting ready to wrap, but I want you to think of a couple of thoughts here. The supporting Black businesses. Does supporting Black businesses go beyond buying once? Now, that's a conversation I want you all to think about. You're going to have, we coming to an end, so you got literally 60 seconds to kind of talk about that. But I want to kind of go over the comments and share what was the answers to the last question. And of course, expert anointed financial coach done put in everything, probably not everything, but here are some powerhouses. And for those who will hear this on the audio, you can't see this chat. I want to throw it out there because, again, a part of, what Kirsten mentioned about how do we change it, we have to be able to expose people to it, because exposure leads to expansion. We got to at least put them in a position to be able to own a new narrative, right? And in a world right now, and an administration prior to this administration who are doing all that they can to, throw the baby out with the bathwater, and act like we did nothing, we have no history. It's important that we continue to have these kind of conversations. So here are a few Black powerhouses that my financial coach shared. You have Durham, North Carolina, Black Wall Street of the South. You have Jackson Ward in Richmond, Virginia. You have Bronzeville in Chicago, Illinois. You have Sweet Auburn in Atlanta, Georgia. You have Parish Street in Raleigh, North Carolina. Here is just some feedback. It was so many communities that had economic empowerment besides Tulsa. And that is correct, which is why I wanted to get the conversation started around that, because that's what we hear of. But, for example, I'm going to challenge everyone here to go to your social media right now. And I want you to make your post Black economic powerhouse and add one of these that's in the comments. And then I want you to do me a favor and hashtag Terri Talks Official on YouTube. Hashtag financial literacy, economic development, whatever comes to mind. Because if we want to change a narrative and we want people to own it, we have to be able to be the change that we want to see. So will you do that for me? Will you go now to your social medias, whichever one you feel most comfortable with, and make it a post? Name one of these as a Black economic powerhouse. And then I want you to hashtag Terri Talks Official, as well as any of the other financial development or hashtags that you think will help this spread. One of the other things, which, it'll lead into my question, and I'm going to ask our folks to respond here. We have a tendency of only supporting each other one time. Right. And I mentioned it, I alluded to it earlier. Some of them can't can't corner the market because they don't have enough business. They don't have consistent customers or cash flow. Right. And you don't have a business if you don't have consistent customers and cash flow. So if we're going to, not only talk about it, but help advance this movement, I'm going to call it, I don't know what else to say, or to advance this conversation, we have to participate And we don't just participate one time. We need to continue to participate and continue to share. So do that for me, and we can spread this and make this a conversation that needs to be had so that we can own a new narrative. So in the comments, I want you guys to weigh in. Take 2 minutes. I know I said 60 seconds, but the Lord has, you guys are so full, and we want the audience to get the value that you all provide. Go ahead and use 2 minutes instead of 60 seconds and just answer that question in the way that you feel the need to answer it. Does support for Black businesses go beyond buying one?
So because I'm off mute, I'm gonna just go ahead and start. I'm gonna say it has to, right? If it's going to have any impact, it has to. We can, even as I hear people talk about like the Target boycott and whatever, and now what, right? So you do something once, great, thank you. But if you want it to have impact, I need you to do it. It needs to be the new habit, right? It needs to be the new thing that we do. Because if you can find value, and the thing is finding values, there's so many Black businesses, so many Black products, there's so many black people we could be supporting if we just took the time to seek them out, right? And so you can find the quality, and a lot of times it's because we want the thing quick. We want it real quick on Amazon. That's easier. The convenience of it. We've gotten so used to that. But there was a time when we waited for things. We can wait for it. You're not going to die. But yes, Tony, we can wait. Stack up so you don't have to wait long. You just wait the one time. But we need to be our best supporters because nobody else is going to support us like us. So if we don't support us, nobody's going to come follow suit and be like, oh, let me. No, we got to do it. So that's where I'm at.
All right. And while Tony getting ready to come, thank you for, sticking to the 2 minutes. I appreciate that. As Tony comes with her response, I want you to think about businesses that you can support. If you're part of the Target fast, if you're part of the boycotts, think about, because it's very real that you still need some of those supplies. But I want you to go a little deeper and identify a business that you can support on the regular. Like you can support on the regular. Okay, so think about that as we're having this conversation, and we're going to delve in. So if you have not subscribed to this channel, myself and a few other guests, our lovely guests here, and we're going to keep adding every week to the conversation and other guests to the conversation. Go and like and subscribe. Get your notifications set. Again, change just doesn't happen. Nothing just happens. It's called planned success. And if we want to be successful, if we want to change and move needles, we have to be locked in and consistent about it. Not, woo-woo today and then I don't know tomorrow, right? So that's why I'm challenging you and I'm giving you a call to action because it matters, right? And it adds to short-term or long-term sustainability. Okay, Toni?
I mean, I always support Black people because my clients is Black. Ain't that crazy? But my clients, I help as many people as I help. But at the end of the day, if I feel called to help first generational people who are called to have an assignment of wealth so that they can be the philanthropist, then I can think of all of my clients who I'm always sharing their information, sharing their message, helping them with regards to compliance, helping them with regards to starting their businesses, protect their assets, helping them with regards to pushing them into different communities that I know will help them. And then, my church, and all the entrepreneurs in that church, if they got something going on, then I'm going to support them because I believe that we're stronger together. Now, I was also thinking, I'm like, yeah, well, my accountant is Black and my insurance person is Black. You know what I mean? With regards to it, where it is. And it's not because I'm a racist or I'm discriminatory. It's just that we tend to know, and trust people who we know, like, and trust, and who with regards to it. So, yeah. Now, a challenge for
go ahead.
us,
you got 60 more seconds.
For a challenge for us is is there a hair? Well, even my hairdresser salon and whatever, she's African American. But I'm like, is there a grocery store? No, not necessarily, because I have ShopRite, Acme, or Giant, so it's about accessibility for me, But it's like, how can I make sure? Because at this point, at over 50, closer to 55 than anything, it's for the legacy. It's for how can I make sure that we don't end up being a statistic, the status quo, because somebody shut us down or they shut down governmental stuff like that. Yeah. One time is not enough. I think that would be great conversation for next week with regards to who are we supporting and how often we support them. And one, what does it mean to support? Kind of like this.
Well, and I was going to say that, right? So yeah, we may do business with these people. You listed a whole host of people that you do business with, but how many times it's one thing, and all support is good, but it's one thing to repost something. It's another thing to actually be intentional about having conversations with people about why they should do business with this person. Now, let me qualify by saying this, because I can hear you pulling on me. Well, not all Black businesses do good business. That is truth.
Who
but
said that?
That doesn't mean no, I'm not saying you said it. I'm saying the consensus sometimes is I don't do business with my folks because they don't do business. I'm going to share real live experience of what's happening today, right now, that Kirsten is off camera because she's helping me resolve it. I was set to do business with someone. I told them, give me a couple hours. I paid a deposit. Give me a couple hours. I'm going to call you back by the end of the day to confirm it. I called them back and said, okay, it was the situation of if I'm going to pick, Monday or Tuesday for conversation's sake. And so it was understood when I hung up that they were giving me to the end of the day. I had already paid the deposit to confirm whether it's going to be Monday or Tuesday, but they were going to leave that window open for me to call and confirm it.
For this week or next week?
For this week. Or it would have been, in this case, a couple days, right? And so I called back and I said, okay, I'm calling to confirm the actual day. The person said, okay, let me pass it on. They passed it on and they came back and said, well, they gave up that day. Now, the reason why I needed to confirm, which was thoroughly explained,
yes,
was because other people were involved. So in order for me to pick a certain day, I needed to coordinate that with the other players, right? Or other people who basically determined which day it was. So I said, but I had a whole conversation and I was told, well, and it was a fast talking of, well, you need to pick this day and what time can they be there? Ho. I said, first of all, I can't make that decision. I explained thoroughly that this is the reason why I needed to call back. And why can't the other person that they booked, why can't you work it out with them? Because mine was tied to a ton of things that was made known, right? That this would impact this and money was involved, et cetera, et cetera. So the person getting argumentative with me. And I'm like, ma'am.
My lawyer ears is hearing some stuff I don't like. You good?
Well, so I said, well, I have to get back to you. Well, this is business. And if you can't get back by a certain time, we just going to have to give up the slot, right? And what she did say was, I gladly refund you your money, right? Your deposit. I'm like, but basically, I'm just like, this is a situation where I'm kind of pigeonholed, right? The first thought came to my mind, full transparency, was why our people? Because I'm only committed right now to doing business with our people. The second thought was, let me find another one, right? And so I locked her into give me to a certain time tonight. At first, she didn't want to oblige. And we ended with, if somebody else calls, that they would give me a courtesy call. Now I'm eating humble pie because I'm in a situation and it requires me to make a quick decision. So the person around me who understands where I am immediately got to work and we're trying to hit it from both ends. What am I saying? Yeah, we do shoddy business at times, right? And I say we because I'm a part of this community. Not that I do it or, intentionally do it, but that's a thing. But we're not the only folks, right? And that should not stop me from doing business with any other Black folks, right? Or any other companies, and so I need to, we trust, but we verify, we vet, we do what we have to do. We don't just throw it all away and say, well, this is why I don't fool with you at all. And then then get mad when other cultures place stigmas and stereotypes on us.
But you put a deposit down, right?
I did put a deposit down. So I know you coming for them, but yeah, but Kirsten just gave me the okay. I'm going to tell them to refund my money. And now I'm just doing business with another Black owned company. But, the point is, we may not do business with one Black company or a company. We may go, not do it once. We may only are able to do business with them one time. But there's a whole lot of us out here that do similar things that can help us if we continue to do business in that industry, help us corner the market in that industry. But instead, we go outside when one thing doesn't work and we revert back to maybe other cultures that can do similar things. And again, we're not here to say you can make whatever choice you want. But if we're talking about big picture, if we're talking about legacy, if we're talking about eradicating systemic, challenges, then we have to do hard stops and we have to be able to make a turn in a different direction. So with that, it is now 6:30, or almost 6:30. I do want to give our guests the final word. I do want the audience to weigh in on our conversation. Is this relevant? Do you think that we need to continue having it? And how can you play a role in extending the conversation? So, what are you going to do tomorrow if you believe that this is a healthy conversation to have within our community, in our culture, and you believe that we need to have it and keep having it, make that known. And then what are you going to do to extend the conversation? I'm going to just pause here for a moment for our sponsor, and then we're going to give our final words on the other side of this commercial break to our guests. And we want to see you here next week. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. So we want to thank our sponsor for the day. Our sponsor for this episode is Built to Last. Built to Last is a coaching, consulting, and management firm specializing in real estate and construction. And they have a membership community that supports first-time generational wealth builders and help them, get the education that they need, get the execution that they need to be able to create financial freedom and independence, passive and residual income, and build and create legacy and generational wealth. We are thankful tonight for our sponsors for allowing us to be able to have this very much needed conversation in the Black community. And we appreciate their support, their financial support, and all that they do in helping particularly Black families advance and financially. Okay, so with that, we'll ask our guests to give the final word, and then we will end for tonight.
So I'm just coming from, and thank you so much for having this conversation with regards to it. I know there's so many different roots and sprouts and reasons and causes. But I also know that as a mom who also looks after, nieces and nephews, I've realized that we need milestones and we need modalities, right? We need a mission, and we need a mission with regards to either getting out of debt that works, and then building some sort of trust fund that at least funds our retirement, and ideally funds at least like $10,000 for our children. Like, start small. Because if you're seeking wealth because it's in your spirit, you have to understand wealth is a decision, but it's also a dimension that requires you to divert what you're doing and overcome so many different obstacles. It's there with regards to it. But I love having this conversation because of the fact that when we become committed, like I'm committed as a woman of God to tap into the wealth that God gave me as a woman of God, to create a family legacy trust that has at least, I told my husband, with $1.25 million, we can eat from that table. Our boys can eat from the table. The nieces and nephews can eat from the table. And we then can also have some money saved up for nonprofits with a donor advised fund. And it's just literally if nothing else, leveraging insurance, other people's money. So I don't want it. I tell my children less excuses, more execution. When we understand, even with the gamification of each modality of our life, the first 10,000. What is the first 10,000? What is the second 10,000? What is the third 10,000 with regards to it? Now it doesn't look like a whole daggone elephant. I want to build wealth. It gives me something, milestones where I can look and I can measure and I can seek and I can see. Then I can tap in. I'm like, all right, I don't know if y'all heard it, but the challenge is y'all want to build wealth. Terri said, we can help you build so much for $47. Well, tap into that community. You know what I mean? And then as you flow, you grow with regards to it. So that's one of the things I'm like, okay, well, let me see what you got with regards to it. But more importantly, not just talk about generational wealth, but build it. And building is brick by brick. 1,000 to, for some people, starting at 1,000 and then 2,000, then 5,000. And it's like a don't touch it mentality. We'll all create our own family wealth trust. And we have the money set aside to leverage things so that because most of us aren't committed because we don't see the fruit. But when you appreciate the fruit and you can taste this fruit and you can leverage the fruit, then that will give you an opportunity to realize that you got to talk, not just talk about it, but be about what you speak about so that you can see more and that more abundantly. So thank you for this opportunity to have that conversation.
I'm going to resist the urge to say something.
Go ahead, say it.
No, no. You are right. You know, we don't see something in 2 days. Sometimes it's that stick to itiveness. We will flatline, but we don't understand. And I think I'm not sure we do. I'm not sure it's a total lack of understanding or a total commitment. Those are things that individually we have to ask ourselves. But you do understand the cost of not waiting out something beyond 2 days. So it took you years. And as we're seeing, generations allow certain things to be perpetual in our bloodlines, right? And so those things happened over time, generations, 10 years at a time. Are you really going to say you only have a short fuse of 2 days to see the fruit of your labor? If some people wait longer to watch their plants sprout up and fruit to grow in that process, then they will give to allowing themselves to even be positioned to do better financially, to have financial security and stability and wellness, right? So, if we know that and we know that to be a thing, let's challenge ourselves. Let's stop flatlining. If you got a task to do and you know that your action, because faith without works is dead, you can pray to all the gods, right? Well, I don't want you to pray to all the gods, but you know what I mean. And you can be believing and you can be fasting and praying. We know some things come by fasting and prayer. But all the sending has already been sent. Jesus has already died and came and coming back. Right? We are God's eyes, ears, and legs in the earth. We are it. And so sometimes, it's easy to say, well, I'm waiting on God for my change to come. He waiting on you. He done gave you all of the strength, the abilities, the gifts, the breath. Like, let's talk about that. And then Toni quoted this earlier. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. So we're here and have access to that. So that's an excuse. That is a lie that we've allowed to be a truth for us, that it's important that if we're going to see systemic change, right, then we're going to have to do some things that will allow that to be our new reality, to be our new narrative. So I want to challenge you. If you started something, finish it. Yes, you. Yes, you. It doesn't matter how hard it gets. It's hard to not have the financial resources that you want. I'm sure it's hard when you have to say to somebody, I don't have it. Let me get you next week. I'm sure it's hard, or it should be hard, when you see somebody struggling and you like, if only I had the resources to be able to help them. That's hard. Choose your heart. Are you going to get in a community that requires you to do the work because you have to do it? One of my attorneys is here. There's stuff I can't legally do for my clients. I can't sign your name. I can't show up and say I'm you and I'm not. I can't. That's liability and exposure for myself, my legacy. So there's some things that we have to do. Are you going to commit today? Are you going to commit today? All right, Kirsten. And then, Toni, did you want to say something? And if you're still here, we can rock out. I mean, I don't have a problem with rocking out. We can continue to talk, but if
I was saying, I'm gonna jump in real quick.
Kirsten,
Can you
you're
hear me?
frozen.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we can
So
hear you.
I mean, so amen to everything, right? New norms don't just happen. It's going to be based off of the things that we do, right? We have to change it. COVID came in and changed things, right? It created a new norm. We need to come in like COVID and change things and create our new norm. It will cause us to have a drastic change. There's a drastic sacrifice that is needed in this season in order to see a drastic shift in our lives, right? You can't do a little and expect a lot. You got to do a lot to get a lot. You know what I mean? So
Whoa,
people
that's
want to work
good.
in minimum, but want return in maximum. And so we have to shift the way that we are doing things. If you want maximum, do maximum. Sacrifice the maximum at the max. Stop asking, well, what's the least that I can do? What's the most that I can do? I need to do all of that because I want all that comes with doing the most, right? So we like to do the most in all the wrong areas. Let's do the most in the areas that count and that cause us to prosper. We talk often about that well done from God. But I want that well done to be about I was a good steward over all the resources that he gave me, all the opportunities that he sent me, all the people that he connected me to. I want that to be my well done. That I did well with those things so that I could, because if I do well with those things, I will be able to do well with the things that come as a result. So when, like you said, when the people are coming and they're asking, I have. When things need to be built, I could be the builder, right? I'm not on the side of looking who can build, I can build. I can finance the building. I can do whatever it is that needs to be done. All of our churches are closing. They're closing because there's no money in the storehouse. But why is there no money in the storehouse? We all reading from the same book, but we're not all on the same chapter, right? We're not getting from it. We're not reaping what we need to be reaping from a word that's supposed to be sown in our hearts. And so if it's sown in my heart, it needs to be sown in my mind. It needs to be sown in the things that I'm doing. It should be evidence of this word. Like people, we want to get every prayer circle, everything going when somebody is sick. We are financially sick as believers, right? Let's get these prayer circles and some action going about how we need to shift and be in our word and really follow the very principles. If you look at successful people and the things that they follow, you can match almost everything they do up to something in scripture. And so that means the blueprint has been printed. You don't need to go find another book, go need to talk to another person. Like it's there. What you have to do is it. You have to do the work. And you talked about time and people, spending more time on watching a plant. We binge watch every Netflix series, we waste time. But time is a gift. Time is a gift that God has given us, right? It's something I can't get back. When it's gone, it's gone. And it is my job to be a good steward over the gift of time. And so if God has given me a gift of time, I don't know how long I'm going to have. We put off to tomorrow, next year, next week, whatever. But I got right now. Be a good steward over right now. Be a good steward over the opportunity that's in front of you in this moment, because you're not guaranteed it tomorrow. You're not guaranteed it next year, 5 years, nothing. But you have it right now. So be a good steward over what is given to you right now. And that's it. That's all I got.
Amen. That's good. Be a good steward of what you have right now. Time is one. And because I believe that if you are lacking and you find it hard to get out of something, monetize it. So don't scroll for free. I mean, if you're going to scroll, just don't do it for free. Toni, you look like you wanted to say something. You want to take us home? You want to add to the conversation? Or we'll be on next week. The topic, the conversation that we're having is why haven't Black people cornered the market? There are some things we did not get into tonight. We just wanted to get the conversation started. And I believe that we have successfully done that and we will continue it. And to the point of our audience, this is a layered topic, but it is one that just because it's layered, it's not one that we can afford not to have. Not only is it one that we cannot afford to have, we cannot get in a stupor over it. We can't look away. We have to. It is incumbent upon us to do the things that we need to do to change the trajectory of our financial lives. Kirsten mentioned about, not being financially sick. But we had the finances. There are so many different, and Toni mentioned this, and I'm going to end with this, modalities and, mindset, right? There are so many things that God has given us from the earth that can help heal a lot of things. Do they cost money? Yes, they do. The reason why the other stuff don't cost as much is because they diluted it in such a way to make more and to make money off of products they know are not a cure. They don't address problems, right? But they know that there's a reliance on medicines. How many of us have gone into family members' houses and they got them lined up like they are the pharmacy, right? And guess what they say? My this, my that. Instead of figuring out, now I've been taking this all these years and I ain't healed all these years, right? But things cost and they cost, but you pay for what you get, what you pay for, right? So we want to change the financial trajectory of your life, your family lives, and generations to come. And we're going to do that by having these conversations and giving you actionable items and steps that you can take to do it. And we'll leave it at that unless Toni wants to say something. But until next week, as she would say, for now, that's her signature send off. So I'm going to ask her to say her signature send off, but we will have this extended conversation next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Join the conversation. The more we join in it on the conversation, the more it becomes visible, it becomes voluminous, right? The more people it reaches, the more people can pay attention. They can stop and pay attention to it. So help us, help us. Amen. All right, Toni, you say it and then we will stop at that.
Yeah, thank you so much for all of y'all taking notes, because note takers are money makers. Thank you for challenging yourself to ask yourself, what are you doing with the IP that's inside of you, even with regards to the business that God has given you and blessed you with regards to we started with, why aren't more Black people cornering the marketplace? Like, why we overcome? But now it's more about, what are you doing in your household? Because your household, your mind is the first ministry, your family, because a good man, woman leaves something for the children, children. But you got to start with something. Money is a seed. Money gives you options. Money is, it answers a lot of things. Some people are like, it don't answer everything. It's in the Bible, but it was thrown out there with regards to, it answers a lot of things. And the question is, what are we doing with the money? What is our mission? What is our message? If you're like, well, I don't have $50,000. I don't have $100,000. Nobody's giving me equity in their business or whatever. Well, the Terri talks, she has, an opportunity. She says for $47, she can make change possible. Why not give her an opportunity? Why not seek to know and say, okay, she obviously invested in herself and her mindset, and she's a God-believing person. If this is her ministry, maybe, just maybe, if I put this seed in, I can multiply. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but multiply with regards to it. Because here's the thing. No one's giving us the money that we want. You can leverage it. I like to think of it as pimping the system, legally, of course, but you can also appreciate opportunities of turning your intellectual property into legacy, tapping in. If it's real estate, most African Americans started in real estate. I like that there's other people who started in insurance. I started in insurance. Then I went into law, and then I got into compliance planning. What can you do with the brilliance that God gave you? How do you bankroll it? How do you turn it into the mustard seed of financial faith so that you can have more and that more abundantly? Because it's not enough to just talk about fear. It's not enough necessarily to talk about all the millionaires and billionaires. And people are doing awesome, amazing things. People are already doing philanthropy. But now the question is, when it comes to you and your household, are you doing the best you can? Because it starts with the budget, but that's not the end all and be all. So we had this conversation, and now you always have to look yourself in the mirror and say, am I doing the best that I can with what God gave me? Am I a consumer? more than a borrower? Or am I an owner more than a person who is just always owning the problems and the chaos and the confusion? Am I so worried about what's in that John in the White House? Or do I understand and appreciate, doesn't matter how much he shut it down? God's will, God's bill. Okay? So we'll talk later, but bye for now.
Bye.
Yo, we could have talked for days, but because we want you to join us next Tuesday for another episode of Terri Talks, that's it for today. Talk soon.